Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to take this opportunity and welcome you tonight to our March 6th Hendersonville Regional Planning Commission meeting. And we'd like to note tonight that all members are present, save Key, Bryant McCormick. She's absent this evening. But we do have a quorum, and so we're going to proceed on. We have one public hearing tonight, a request by B&J Holdings, LLC, to amend Indian Lake Village Phase 4 Final Development Plan to add storage to the list of permitted uses for the property located on the west side of Cinema Drive and the north side of Saundersville Road, as shown on Sumner County Property Tax Map 145, Parcel 76.00. We have no person signed up for that hearing, and so we'll declare that hearing closed. Request for information and assistance. Do we have any from the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Additions to the agenda. Anybody? Okay, hearing none. We have the minutes from February the 6th. Do I have a motion to accept? Move to approve by Ms. Atchley, second by whom? Ms. Silkwood. All in favor say aye. Aye. No? Okay, one abstention, Mr. Millsaps. Then we have the consent agenda items. You'll have Imperial Point Properties. Of course, they agree with all comments. Mallard Bay Assisted Living, they agree with it's a site plan renewal. Michael Archibald Subdivision Phase 2, they agree with all staff comments. Saundersville North Preliminary Plat, just as by way of information for all commissioners so that you'll know, this particular one is the item that was deferred last Planning Commission meeting. And I did want to let everybody know, I mean, if anybody wants to take it off the consent, that's fine, but we did meet with Mr. Lucky, and we have come to some agreement on all the comments that were made, and so staff and everybody, they're fine, and it's all good. So want to let everybody know that. However, if you want to talk more about it, we can take it off the consent agenda. Otherwise, we'll move right on. Then we have one more on the consent agenda, which is Winbrook Phase 6. So is anybody seeking to take anything off the consent agenda? Are we okay? Move to group and approve. Second. Got a second? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. Consent agenda items are passed. Final plats, there are none. We move to preliminary and final development plans. The first one is Durham Farms. They are agreeing with all comments, but who's handling this, Mr. Free?
Grant Green, our senior planner, is handling this particular one.
Mr. Green.
Yes, sir. This is actually Phase 4 of Durham Farms. It's the last phase that was in the development plan. They have the developers addressed all the comments and agreed to everything. So staff finds everything acceptable and ready to go.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Moved by Mr. Lee, second by Ms. Stringfellow. I'm sorry. Very, very good, very good. All in favor say aye.
Before we, I have a question.
Mr. Robertson. And by the way, let me just take a moment and it's my bad here. Let me introduce Mr. Robertson, our newest member to our Planning Commission. Welcome.
Thank you. And I assume it was appropriate after the motion and second then to open to floor to questions. Is that accurate? Okay. My question for staff is all of the changes that are being proposed, are they restricted to Phase 4?
Yes, sir. There were some changes in the previous phases that have been already approved, but yes, all the changes in this are restricted to Phase 4.
Okay. That answers my question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, we have a motion and second on the floor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries, so ordered. Move on to Indian Lake Village Phase 4, which is Indian Lake Self-Storage. And Mr. Free, is Grant handling that one as well?
Timothy is handling this one.
You all should have at your places an amended or revised staff report. So use that one and throw your old one away. This one has some adjusted numbers to correct an error that I made. This site's located at the intersection of Saundersville Road and Cinema Drive. You may remember, some of you last year, y'all approved a site plan for the Learning Center on this lot. They have since gone away. Now, South Star is requesting to amend the FDP to add interior access self-storage to the list of allowed uses. They have self-imposed some restrictions on that use. First, it's only to be allowed on lot 76, as indicated by the red square on the plan there in the report. Second, a minimum of 33% of the ground floor will be used for retail or office uses, i.e. not for self-storage units. And three, they're committing to upgraded building architecture that disguises the self-storage use, and you can see that in your staff reports there and the attached elevations. This will be a 3-story facility with 800 self-storage units. 2 upper floors will be for self-storage. The first floor will be 33% of it will be for retail or office, all of it fronting on Saundersville and or Cinema Drive. If you throw out the portion of the office or retail that will serve the storage facility, that overall percentage of the first floor would be 29%. So that's their request. The Planning Commission can take final action on this tonight, or if they decide that it has a substantial impact on the surrounding development, they can choose to send it on to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for one reading.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody here from the developer? Yeah. This, so that we'll understand, this is part of the rezone request, and we're essentially adding a use to the plan. And so at the appropriate time, we would need to discuss whether we feel like that's an impacted change that would need to go before BOMA, or we could choose to just to take care of the matter ourselves. My question, it's a beautiful building, and I'm looking at the plan, and I've looked at the entrances and exits and on the back side of it, but my question for you is on that usage on the first floor, it's going to be retail. Mr. Whitten just said 29,000.
Yeah, so all of the office and retail is going to be, makes up 33% of the first floor square footage. So that's about 11,000, it's in here somewhere, 11,000 something square feet.
Will be that, yeah.
Yes.
The whole first floor was more than that, though. It was.
Yeah, first floor
20 to
is
29,000.
34,131 square feet.
Okay, so the question is I would like for you just to talk to us a little bit about why you feel like that added use would be appropriate there.
Sir, do I need to turn this on?
Yes, let me do that for you. I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Glenn McGee, and I am South Star, myself and my partner, and I appreciate your consideration for this tonight. We are primarily a mixed-use development. We're based in Franklin, Tennessee. We have quite a number of developments in the Cool Springs area. We have one such project that's mixed use in nature, where we also did this type of concept, other than it's 5 stories, with a portion of the ground floor also being retail. And so that's sort of where this type of use has gone, is to more interior. The exteriors look more like an office building or something like that, with the ground floor activity. We are retail developers. That's really where we've done most of our work, have a lot of experience in that world. And so we are doing our first one in Cool Springs. We have 2 others that we're working on, this being one of those. And with some partners who have done this more than we have had great success in activating that first floor and putting it in areas where it could be very beneficial. I mean, there was almost 1,200
Apartments.
Yeah, there's almost 1,200 residential units, I think, approved in the Indian Lake area, about 600 of those apartments. I think another almost a couple hundred for sale. that have been done, and if you would look at the demographics of our site in Franklin, it's almost identical. And as we all continue to live in smaller and smaller spaces, we're using these types of facilities more and more. So it's just a component of what we do from a development perspective. And we had been looking in Hendersonville for some time, had a relationship with Randy. He and I had done some discussion. This is a piece of property he had had for a long time with not a lot of activity, and we just started doing some brainstorming, and we ran our analytics. We don't throw darts. We're very specific about what we do, so we don't do a lot of speculative building. So the only speculative portion of this would be the retail office component on that ground floor. And you won't see the same retailers there that you would out on Indian Lake. You know, I'm giving you way more information you probably want.
Oh, it's good, please.
But on Saundersville Road, you don't have the same drive-by traffic, right? So we see things there, and we have similar type assets. But the things you would see there might be more service-oriented. For instance, in this facility we're doing in Franklin, doesn't have the same kind of frontage, and we're doing actually it's a pet, it's an animal surgery center. And which is, it's hard to understand. It was hard for me to believe. I love pets, but I didn't know there was such thing as just a surgery center. And so, but it's a great use for something like this because it's not a nuisance to its neighbors or or upstairs. I'm not saying that's what would be here, but that's something we would certainly try to see if there's an opportunity. So it won't be the same type of retailers like the Starbucks and some of the fast casual restaurants and those kind of things, but certainly more service oriented where you could see insurance agents. You might see, I mean, we've got a medical use going in our one in Cool Springs, so there could be some of those type of ancillary uses and not your prime retail.
Okay.
So there would be signage, you know, much like retail, not obnoxious in nature. And it maximizes the use on that piece of property by having some verticality to it, which would also match some of its surroundings.
All right, thank you. Any other questions by commissioners? Mr. Robertson.
So you have similar buildings in other locations in Middle Tennessee, did you say?
No, sir. No, sir. We're starting our first building right now in the Cool Springs area, right on Liberty and Carruthers Parkway.
And does it have mixed use as well?
It does. It's going to be 5 stories in nature with retail on the ground floor. Next door, we've built a 120,000-foot Lifetime Athletic, which is a world-class facility. We have an office building next to it. Then we have 2 retail buildings in front of it where we have a bank and I haven't signed the tenant that would be most recognizable to you, but Chicken Salad Chicken and
That's fine.
2 or 3 juice concept. I mean, it's all kinds of things, but it's a traditional retail building like you see up and down Indian Lake Drive, but it's right in front of.
Yeah. Please don't say any more. I haven't had dinner tonight.
Okay.
So in those buildings,
Yes,
is only a percentage of the first floor
Same way.
retail and commercial?
Same way. And the biggest thing on retail is with that kind of depth, you know, the site's not large enough to make the whole ground floor retail, and plus the demand's not necessarily there. And then you got to be able to park that entire ground floor. The nice thing about storage is, and projects we're working in, is it doesn't have a tremendous amount of traffic. You can take advantage and go vertical and get more square footage on the site and still do that retail component on the ground floor. So the reason we don't do the entire depth, and if we did a traditional, 20-foot storefront, it would be 20 by, 100, 150 feet deep. And so that just doesn't work. Now, the beauty of what we're doing is let's say we did have a tenant that came in and said, we would like more square footage. The way we're building the ground floor with the columns on centers, we could take up as much space as we could actually park.
Configuration, yeah.
We'd have to be able to park it,
So, question, I guess, for the staff. If the Planning Commission approved this request, is there any prohibition for them to remove the retail and commercial on the first floor, or are they going to have to do that in perpetuity? Or would they have to come back to the board?
Timothy?
It would be, they could not use it for any other purpose than office or retail in that amount of square footage.
The 33%
Right.
of the first floor.
Right. If they wanted to change it to self-storage, they'd have to come back to you first.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robertson. Any other commissioners? Mr. Lee.
Yes, Mr. McGee, thank you for the plan. How many individuals will be employed by this storage facility? How many full-time employees?
There'll be one full-time manager and then one additional employee. We use a third-party management company, which is really one of the largest management companies in the country. And so we own it, we build it, and we basically pay them to manage it. But the way they do it is they have one full-time manager and then one other full-time employee that's sort of a manager in training. And so there's two full-time, and then the balance is done with part-time staff. That's just for the storage piece.
And what was the rationale on that first floor, knowing what the original design and plan and development of this area was? Why did you think that limiting only 11,000 square feet for retail or office was needed, or would be of benefit to this development or to our communities?
Well, I mean, we would want to do all the retail that we feel like we could lease. But as we sort of studied this with Randy and doing what we do from an analytics standpoint, we said if we could command or demand more square footage to be activated retail space, it'd already be there. It's tough to go there and do a box today and it work. And so when we were talking to Randy, and he said, we need some something to sort of match vertically what's going on the other end. We like sort of your concept of what you're talking about. You've done in Cool Springs. That makes a lot of sense. We like the retail component. We think it's an added benefit to communities like this that we could do a project like this in sort of the core of activity. And it sets very conveniently to the residential that's theirs, which is very, very important. And so we feel that would be the benefit. In these mixed-use developments where it's all this what they call vertically integrated mixed-use development, you're seeing all components come in, from storage to childcare to, all these things, because convenience is key. It's walkability. I want it right out my back door. I want to be able to run over and get my bicycle out of storage, all those kinds of things. So, this is a key component in these types of mixed-use developments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Freed, talk to us a little bit, walk us through a little bit about what was approved there before.
Yes, Chairman. Before, what's already approved on the site now that we've approved is a child care center. It was a one-story facility. I don't have the exact square footage. I believe it was somewhere in the range of 10 to 12,000 square feet. It had quite a bit of parking associated with it and outdoor play areas and things like that. But that was a one-story building that we had approved for the site that was in that 10 to 12,000 square foot. And then how much was this? How much was the square footage on this one for the retail, commercial?
Well, in just the box itself, we have 12,000 feet of retail. We're just over 2 acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was essentially the same lot that we saw that had already been approved.
Right.
We did add a little bit to it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Free. Any other questions by commissioners? I would say, just on my side, in talking some more about this, I think through the years, when Indian Lake Village came online and things started building out on Saundersville Road, streets of Indian Lake and whatnot, you envision what could go there. And for the past several years, there's been a lot of things envisioned there. And I'm not sure that self-storage was one of them.
Right.
But then again, we've got very good precedent here. We just approved a self-storage over on Main Street. I think the architecture is good, and given the fact that you are going to put some retail in on the bottom, office retail, whatever, that goes to something that Mr. Lee and I've talked about over and over again, and that is the people that are employed there and that are on that site. Planning directors mentioned, we had a daycare there before, which would have employed, 12 to 15, maybe 20 people. And so, you're going to have those things that happen. I would say, and this is just me, if this is approved, you'll come back to the site plan.
Yes, sir.
The elevation on the rear, which would be facing streets of Indian Lake, their side there, that kind of backs up to what I call the ledge, called the
Yes, sir.
plateau there. I think that on that, I really do like the front elevations and the side elevations, but on that back side there, it might not be a bad idea to at least conceptualize something more along the line of what you're doing on the front, even if some of those things are faux things, and Mr. Witten could help us on that one. But and the only reason I would say it, and that's just an idea, because that will not be out of view. There will be,
sure.
There are potential uses that will come in up on that on the ledge,
Okay.
and the parking lot
Right.
there. So,
Okay.
and
Yeah, we, for this purpose, Mr. Witten and Mr. Free were very good about explaining the process to us, and we understood this was a different use, and we wanted to provide as much information as we could. So our architect here tonight, as well as my partner in construction and development, we wanted to give as much detail as we could. Even though this wasn't a site plan, we wanted you to get the flavor of really what we were trying to create. And so, going through site plan, we definitely, we'll do all we can.
well, don't want to put words in the mouth of any commissioners. If you have any more questions, if you do not, what we're looking for tonight is your will on this. I feel like, and I would elect the input of the planning director as well, and other commissioners. I do not feel like this is a bold enough change that it would have to go before BOMA. I think we could handle it on our own here tonight, so it would be a minor addition rather than a major. And of course, they have agreed to all staff comments, and with that, I would like to hear from y'all. What are your thoughts on that? Mr. Millsaps, and then Ms. Stringfellow, and then Mr. Lee. Mr. Millsaps, go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one comment. When I got the materials and started looking at it, I tried to envision it in that property and with the fact that there's still one parcel
Right.
that would be between this structure and the Hampton Inn. And I just tried to envision, it's a little different, but I tried to envision how this would look from Saundersville, or even not necessarily Cinema, but where you turn up into the streets. It would be a height consistent with what's there.
Right.
And if it was just all one story, I just thought that was, and that's what I thought we were getting ready to look at. But I like that. I think we've got more potential than we probably know of, because things are changing. People are moving in here. Years ago, nobody, even when we started the Indian Lake project, I don't think any of us really could see what was going to happen. And it didn't just happen here. You mentioned two of the highest growth areas in Middle Tennessee, which is the Franklin Cove Springs and Murfreesboro. And we've still got a sizable number of parcels to be built yet. And this is the first time that I've thought about it. Some of those folks in most of those apartments or condominiums or whatever they're in, most of them don't have a storage place. They don't have a garage. And when you mention going to get your bicycle out so you could ride, that was, I just hadn't thought about that opportunity and that accommodation to our residents in Indian Lake, Indian Springs. So that's just a comment that I wanted to make that I thought made a difference. It made a difference to me as to where I was going to land on this.
Thank you, Mr. Millsap. Ms. Stringfellow?
Well, he kind of hit on that, what I was going to say about the storage, because as I get, as I have parents and you have things that you have to take out of houses and you don't have room for them, you need to put them in storage, and millennials that are coming up now, they don't want to have a lot of stuff and they'll want to store it somewhere, but I think it'll look good over there, the way the design and so.
Thank you, Ms. Stringfellow. Mr. Lee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have some concerns about the request that's being made. My first concern always is employment, and what sort of employment opportunities are we providing for the citizens of this community. We have invested a great deal, and the mayor has given a focus on economic and community development, and certainly storage units doesn't move us down. An employee of one and one trainee does not move us down that road very far. I'm a little concerned that even if we were going to consider some storage and retail space, that we would have more space dedicated for retail or for office or for other things where people could work. I do have a concern that when we start making an exception from lot to lot to lot, it's almost like spot zoning. Once the camel has his nose in the tent, how do you ever tell someone else that they can't also do this and also do this and also do this? I do recognize the need for storage units for the people that live in that area. I mean, I think that I do recognize that as a need. To me, what just seems to be bubbling up, and it's bubbling up over and over again as we have dealt with this plan development, is that we really need a new vision for this plan development for 1918. Maybe that's where I'm stuck. For 2018, instead of when we originally approved the project, because it is true. We envisioned big box retail. We envisioned a park-like setting, and it was successful in many parts of the country and has been successful in many parts of the country. And yet that is changing. That has changed, and it's changed a lot more over the last 10 or 15 years. So I think the design is good. I mean, I think that has been noted, and that's good. But anytime that we start making an exception for this lot or this lot and not look at it as a whole, I do have some concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any other commissioners? Mr. Robertson?
It's my understanding that this planning commission approved a PD alteration when Kroger storage was allowed. So I see a precedent. I see that this body has approved a similar request. I think this request stands on its own merit, not only for the appearance that you've agreed, and also that you've agreed in the site plan that you'll be submitting, that you'll make necessary alterations that have been mentioned here today, and we'll have a second chance to look at that. I think it'll bring in tax revenue to the city, and I believe Hendersonville Horizons mentioned, which Dr. Lee was on, a need for office space, a possible office space need in Hendersonville. So I'm glad that you have addressed that by reserving some of the first floor for office space and commercial and retail for that. So based on that, those conditions and the precedent that was already been set and the looks of it, I plan to support the request.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Any other commissioners? Okay, at this time, we would need a motion that would kind of do two things. that would offer up a motion either to approve or deny, whichever folks you want to, whichever will the commission. And if we're going to approve, we also need to include in there that this will be declared as a minor change, and we're just going to go ahead and take care of it. And then we'll just take it from there. So, Mr. Millsap, you got a motion?
Chairman,
Hold on a second. There you go.
all right. I move that we approve this item, that we, in so doing, we declare it to be a minor adjustment. And what was the other one thing you wanted?
That it would be a permitted use on this
There
particular.
would be a permitted
Added
use.
use.
That's correct.
Staff comments.
With staff comments,
Yes.
yes.
Second.
We got a second by Ms. Petrelli.
Ms. Stringfellow?
Oh, Ms. Stringfellow, I didn't hear. Sorry about that, Darlene. Did you get all that, Lauren? The motion and the second? Okay, we have a motion, a second. Are there any more, is there any more discussion on this matter? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay? Nay, okay. Okay. Then everyone was in agreement except for Mr. Lee. Thank you. Look forward to seeing the site plan. Okay, we now move to the site plan, item number 9, and the first one is Cruise and Sports. Mr. Free, who's handling that one?
Timothy Whitten would be handling that.
Mr. Whitten.
This is an expansion of an existing facility on Volunteer Drive next to Premier Park. The addition will be consistent with the existing building in terms of the architecture and the building materials. The building materials are, it's mainly EIFS over some split-face block at the bottom. So that will be continued on the addition on the front. The existing building on the rear, which faces west in this case, is 100% split-face block. They got approval to do that back then. They're asking for a waiver to continue to do that on the new addition, so that they would continue to have all split-face block facing that west property line where there's existing vegetation, and they're willing to add additional vegetation if needed.
So the waiver that they're requesting is just a continuation of what they already have?
Correct.
It would match the new, just match?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, are there any, it says here they've agreed to all staff comments. Do we have any questions by commissioners at all? Okay, do we have a motion to accept with all staff comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve.
Will be approved with the waiver and all staff
With the
comments?
waiver and all staff comments.
Second by Mr. Altizer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So ordered, carried unanimously. Now we move to the horse barn.
That will be green.
Mr. Green's going to do that. But, hey, we're working on a horse barn here. I can get on board with that.
Mr. Chairman, we're finally getting back to 1918.
We're getting back to 1918 now, yeah. Oh, hey, this barn, though, it ain't going to be 1918.
No.
Oh, boy. Mr. Green.
Thanks, guys. This is located off of Spear Point Drive, which is across from Burris Elementary, kind of in the same neighborhood with Knox Doss Middle School. And this property is zoned ER. It's a horse barn for the city police department, and the design, as you can see the rendering down there, it's hardy on the sides, and there's some split face block on the bottom as more of a trim, 2 to 3 rows of that. And our zoning ordinance, split face block can be approved as a trim on a case-by-case basis, given that it is a barn, and it's not really a public facility. It's just for the police department to and the horses, the horse patrol, it seems like it'd be reasonable to allow for something of that nature. So it doesn't really have a lot of visibility from, it's a good way off of Drags Creek Road. So it's really, if you're at the middle school, at the schools, you could probably see it, but other than that, it's not very visible.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
Ready for a question?
We're ready for the question.
I move approve.
Okay. We got a motion by, did you have a question, Ms. Petrelli?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just-
We'll hold on question here real quick, so let Ms. Petrelli speak.
I just had a statement. I first would like to thank Officer Duran for coming tonight. He is one of two mounted patrol officers that patrol the whole city, so we appreciate their service. This is a beautiful barn, as you can see. It's been a long time coming. There were some private donors that helped with this project in the beginning a couple of years ago. So I just wanted to congratulate everybody who has worked so hard on pulling this barn together. So thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Robertson, make your motion.
I make a motion to approve.
All staff comment. They got a second by Ms. Petrelli. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries, so ordered. Mr. Millsaps.
Just a question to the officer. I live over off Claudel, and y'all gonna bring the horses back out there for us to see from time to time? The pasture that's out behind the barn that's in use, it goes back in there, a lot of traffic, and especially when it's good weather, and to see those beautiful animals out there.
We get a lot of great comments from the people that live over there, and we appreciate it, and I hope, we'll be the same kind of neighbors over on the north side.
Well, I'm sure you will, but it's amazing how much you get used to seeing those horses stand out there, and they're beautiful animals.
Maybe we can talk to the end, but a couple out there.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good.
Ain't nothing wrong with horses. I guarantee you. All right, let's move on to our next item, which is the NTG North Addition Site Plan. And is that going to be Mr. Whitten or Mr. Green?
That would be Mr. Whitten.
Mr. Whitten.
All right, this is located in the Saundersville Industrial Park, behind the existing NTG facility. On the map there in your staff report, the little red triangle, this addition would be located on Laverne Circle in that 90-degree elbow. The existing building is about 472,000 square feet. It's got metal siding over split-face block on all sides. New building is 50,000 square feet. It's a separate standalone building for storage. And it's going to, they would like to continue that metal over split-face block. The issue is the building design standards state that in this industrial area, you can have split-face block, you can have metal on the sides not facing the road as long as they're screened. But on the side of the building facing a road, you may not have metal siding. So NDG is requesting a waiver to allow metal over split-face block on Laverne Circle, which would be consistent with what they already have on the existing building. Other buildings across the street on Laverne Circle have a mixture of metal split-face block. There's one that has all CMU block facing Laverne. They have agreed to all staff comments.
All right, so if the waiver is granted, they're going to provide evergreen screening and...
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Whitten. Any questions by commissioners? Okay, do we have a motion to approve with all staff comments and grant the waiver? Mr. Alton. Any more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So ordered unanimously. There are no sketch plats, no preliminary plats. Rezoning request has been handled. Staff approved projects. Got the Auto Pro exterior renovation site plan, Indian Lake leasing office, Quail Hollow site plan. Then staff reviewed projects that are pending: Arby's restaurant remodel, Fountain Brook Phase 2, Hendersonville Medical Center site plan, Michael Archibald property, Millstone PUD Phase 12, Nashville Tempered Glass, the final plat, Norman Creek Phase 1, Villages of Stony Brooks, Section 1 Phase 5 preliminary plat, and then Walmart exterior renovation. And those are all staff approved. Need no action on that. There are nothing there. Planning Director, you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just had just a couple of things, and I'll just hit some of these briefly. One of the things I wanted to share is we've changed a few things on the way that we're handling in-house reviews. There's things that we have that come to the Planning Commission, and then you can see a lot of those things that are kind of pending or things that are staff approved. They're approved at the planning staff level, and so we've just changed things about 2.5 months ago. Where we change the cycle at which we accept these. So basically, everything that comes in-house, we've got it on the same cycle as we do the stuff that comes to the Planning Commission. And what that allows us to do, it's better for the developer because they know when we're going to have something review and they know when we're going to need comments back to them. Before, it was just sort of as we could get to it and as they could get things back to us. And we found that this is a lot better, I think, for the developer, and it's a lot better for the city staff as well. So that's a change that we've made here in the last 2.5 months. In the last month and a half, we've made another change. One of the things that we're doing is we have a lot of pre-development meetings and pre-development meetings where a lot of things that end up here months before they get here, we're meeting with developers and talking about the process and kind of getting things honed down. One of the things that we're doing is we're now involving more people from on those early conversations, fire, and from Public Works, and any other city departments that need to be involved in it. And one of the key things that we're doing is the planning staff is taking the lead to, whenever we're in those meetings, we're kind of keeping some general notes. So we're following up, and we're trying to follow up within about 3 or 4 business days to follow up with an email, just to give a generalization of the things that were discussed, and if there's some deliverables that they want from us, then that's the opportunity for us to provide that, as well as an opportunity for the developer to see, oh, these are the things that the planning staff is saying was covered, and give them an opportunity to say, yeah, but you didn't cover this, or remember we talked about that, an opportunity to catch some of those things. So I think it's going to be good. We're already finding out from a staff standpoint, it's been very helpful. As you can see, the agendas that you all look at, there's a lot of activity going on. So we're meeting with a lot of people, talking about a lot of different things. So this is just going to be something I think that's going to really help us. One of the things that I've talked about with the chairman is that sometime maybe in the next 2.5 months, I think we're going to look at maybe a training where we do a few hours, and we might have it during the lunch, before or after a lunch hour or something, when myself and the staff could kind of go through the process of what happens when someone comes in, and what's happening behind the scenes before things get to here, and as well we've got several new commissioners, go into how the process works and run some different scenarios of different things that we may face, the Planning Commission could face, and how we would tackle those different things from a procedural standpoint, as well as just to talk about development as a whole. One other thing that myself and the staff are looking at is over the summer, one of the things that the BOMA has initiated, and we've secured a contractor to start a development impact fee study to see the possibility of that and give us all the details. So over the next couple of months, that's going to be unfolding, and in that process, we should be able to define, a measurable unit of how much services a house is getting in the city, or a square foot of commercial property, and then how much is that costing, for that service. So through that process, we're going to look at properties that are potentially could be developed that aren't developed, and determine the subdivisions and residential and commercial development that are already approved but just maybe haven't been built, or lots haven't been built on, to kind of look at over the next, 5 to 10 years, what the build-out of the things that are already approved, how much land that would take, what kind of population would it generate, possible fiscal impacts it might have, and look at undeveloped property to run different scenarios, to run not only scenarios on population and things like that, but be able to put some numbers to those so we can look, what type of growth would be positive growth for the community and what type would, could potentially be a drain to the community, and look at those things as we progress forward. So that's one thing that we're going to be looking at here over the summer, and the development impact fee study will be very helpful to us as a basis to look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Free, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Fantastic job, and
Thank my staff too. They do a great job.
Yes, they're doing a great job. That's the mark of a good leader. He's got a great staff. So we're thankful for all that, and I concur. I think that even for those of us that have been on the commission for a while, for us to come back together, and we all do in-service training every year, but for us to come together as this commission and go through some of the finer points of what we do on a monthly basis, I think it'd be really helpful for those of us, for all of us. So I'm excited about that. Mr. Millsaps, you have a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Lee, I'm sorry.
I wanted to go back to a comment I made earlier. I would really like to see us take a more proactive role in some of these previously approved developments like the Indian Lake development area. And, we're getting this exception requested and this exception requested, and I think we're just catching as catch can, and we really need to be looking at what's out there that's innovative, what's different. I don't mind telling you, I was disappointed that we could not go forward with the Glenview North. I mean, that's not in the Indian Lake, but that Glenview North would have been a very innovative project for our city and would have generated a great deal of revenue. So I would ask that we have in the not too distant future a work session where we can actually begin to grapple with some of these things and get some ideas so that we're giving the developers some direction of where we want the city to go, instead of us having to always just to react to whatever the developers bring to us. And not that the developers are not bringing some good projects, I don't mean that. But I would request that we could do that.
Well, I think it's a great request. It's always good for us to go back and review and revise when necessary our land use plan, and to kind of take a look at what we're zoning. And I would say on that end, a lot of the reactionary things are nothing more than market-driven items that come our way. And I remember when we approved Indian Lake Village years and years ago, the whole idea is that, well, this is what we thought it would be. And over the years, literally, we've watched these requests come over and over again because of market-driven things. But now, I think we've got an economic director in place. We've got people that are going out to get business for the city. We've got boards in place. We've got other boards that are looking at this. I think for us to come together and look at the remaining parcels that we have and come up with some good plan, or at least guidance for developers would be very helpful. So I think that's a positive step forward. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Millsaps.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we stand in adjournment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We're adjourned.